Hello, I'm Alex Goddard. I'm a massive Doctor Who fan and welcome back to my channel for a very special, exciting Doctor Who collection video. Now, if you happen to click on this video for one particular reason, it's the reason why I've got RARE in bold capital letters. And that can only mean one thing. Yes, I've got a rare Doctor Who VHS collection that I'm wanting to share with all of you. I've been thinking about this for a long time, but I think it's finally about time. Only a couple of days ago I released my Doctor Who DVD collection. I'm glad a lot of people enjoyed that collection video, and so I decided why not I show you the rest of my Doctor Who VHS collection, because these VHSs are some of the most rarest VHS tapes that I don't think anybody else would find. So this is the size of my VHS collection box, which just seems like a box full of VHS tapes. And that's because it is a box full of VHS tapes, but it feels like a treasure box full of rarity. And as I take off the lid, inside showcases the wonderful amount of VHS gold in here. There is a lot of nostalgia and a lot of rarity within this collection. I'm really just excited to showcase all of these VHS tapes, because not only you may have seen that I've got a few home videos from the BBC Video, like Revenge of the Cybermen and the Android Invasion. These are the only ones that I own on BBC Video, but the rest are full of original VHS tapes that my mum and dad and their families back in the 1990s and the 1980s had the recording equipment and the time to make VHS tapes like these and to pass them down from generation to generation to me as a gift. When I was just 12, just getting into Classic Who, they gave me all this as a gift to say, if you love Doctor Who, we would like you to have this. And this is like sort of like a generational gift that my VHS player, which is in my room right now, and it's 25 years old and it still works today. These VHS tapes are never going away. These VHS tapes still work today, and I wanted to showcase all of the remaining stories that I don't have in my DVD collection, but I do have in my VHS collection. So, without further ado, let's just go through my entire rare VHS collection of Doctor Who. So, to start off, I would love to say that I don't think we will ever find, or you could try and find some slipcases on eBay, but these are some of the original VHS slipcases that were produced all those years ago. These are some old, retro, nostalgic VHS slipcases, and they are just perfect for a basic VHS tape like this. Now this one doesn't have anything on it. This is just a basic test tape, which they managed to have a couple of episodes. I believe it was like Planet of the Daleks, but they decided to scrap this one but just use this as a test, just to see if this process actually works. So I've always kept this because it's like a test for all of the rest of my VHS tapes. So that has nothing on it, but like I said, I've got the home video of the Android Invasion, but I also do have it on DVD, and also I do have Revenge of the Cybermen on home video as well. So that at least completes the season 12 season, if you know what I mean. But yeah, Revenge of the Cybermen I've got, then all of these other ones, and I put them in order. So we're going with the Jon Pertwee stories first, then it'll be Tom Baker, then it'll be Peter Davison, then it'll be Colin Baker, and then finally it'll be Sylvester McCoy. And so let's start off with the Jon Pertwee era. I don't have any William Hartnell stories or any Patrick Troughton stories, to tell you the truth, but my mum and dad and their families had the time, had the recording equipment to watch a load of Doctor Who back in the 1980s and the 1990s, and especially the 1990s, which a lot of you may have not known that there was a certain channel called UK Gold, and that was a channel full of wonderful TV shows, full of retro TV shows like Star Trek, Red Dwarf, Blake 7, Doctor Who, Only Fools and Horses. So there was a lot of stuff on UK Gold back in the 1990s, and they had some repeats of old Doctor Who classic stories, and my mum and dad and their families managed to record a lot of the Doctor Who stories throughout the 1990s on repeats. And there may be a couple of Doctor Who stories that my mum and dad were so lucky enough to experience and so lucky enough to record some stories that were on original broadcast. So I might have some original broadcasted stories in this VHS collection, and that's why I think that this collection is so rare for one particular reason. Why is that? Because my mum and dad and their families were massive Doctor Who fans back in the 1980s, and as soon as they saw the Fifth Doctor's era, they knew they wanted to collect a lot of these Doctor Who stories and pass them down to generation, and so they're given over to me, and I'm so proud to own all of these. And to tell you the truth, I'm not giving them away. It's just such a wonderful, nostalgic, rare collection that I don't think anybody else does have. I feel like I'm the only person who has this sort of collection, because I've seen a lot of people who collect a lot of these BBC home videos, and they've got a lot of these, like I said, a lot of them, pretty much the entire classic series. But for me, these home videos are good, I must say that. I don't like Revenge of the Cybermen, but I do like the Android Invasion. But these are the only two that I own on BBC Home Video, which I think you can also get via eBay or some other places. I'm not too sure, but don't think Amazon do them. You might find them on eBay, but these are so difficult to get right now. But the fact is, I only bought this with my own pocket money, round about in the charity shop. They cost me £2 each. So yeah, it's a very good deal for these two. I mean, there's the only possible way you can find them is possibly eBay or charity shops. Yeah, definitely check charity shops, because they'll definitely have something like this. But yes, let's move on to the Jon Pertwee era, which I'm really excited to show you. So, this is my first one, and this one has the Ambassadors of Death and Inferno. I'm hoping you can see the writing. If you can't, then I'll just let you know what the stories are. But yeah, Ambassadors of Death and Inferno, it's on a repeat, don't worry. My mum and dad weren't around in the 1970s, but they managed to record a lot of Doctor Who stories, especially on repeats throughout the 90s. But yeah, I love the slipcovers. These slipcovers are just so old, so classic, so, I don't know, retro, nostalgic, and so rare to get. I mean, there's hardly any chance of you getting any of these VHS slipcovers anymore. I mean, for me, whenever I open up this box of rare VHS tapes, it looks like I'm looking at treasure right now. All of these VHS tapes feel like gold to me. And so we're moving on to our next one, which is another Jon Pertwee story, and this one is The Claws of Axos, Colony in Space, and The Three Doctors. So yeah, that is certainly a good one. Colony in Space is the only one on there which I don't have on DVD. But yeah, Colony in Space is, I'd say it's an okay story. It's not the best. But Claws of Axos and The Three Doctors, Claws of Axos is underrated. And The Three Doctors, which I've had such a heartwarming connection. Rest in peace, Stephen Thorne. The person who I actually met back in 2018 in September at Warp. You might have seen my vlog, you might have seen a picture with me and Stephen Thorne. Had a wonderful time with Stephen Thorne, got my DVD signed by Stephen Thorne of The Three Doctors. So yeah, I've got a wonderful connection with Omega, Stephen Thorne, massive, wonderful gentleman, and rest in peace, Stephen Thorne, yeah. So sad and so tragic to see his loss, but he's a wonderful, wonderful actor, and he plays so well as Omega in Three Doctors. So now we're moving on to another Jon Pertwee story. We have The Daemons, The Curse of Peladon, and Carnival of Monsters. Yeah, The Daemons, very good story. Curse of Peladon, I find it's overrated. It's not as good as what people think. And Carnival of Monsters is quite underrated. But yeah, I'm very just excited just to go through all this again, because it's like this entire treasure box of VHS tapes. It's like a bloody time capsule. It feels like just so much gold, so much rarity it's just containing in this one little box. My next VHS tape I've got is Planet of the Daleks, The Green Death, and Monster of Peladon. Now, Monster of Peladon is the only story that I don't have on DVD, and I have to say it's my favourite Peladon story, to be honest, because although it's 6 parts long, I just think I like the Ice Warriors as being, you know, villains in this one, and I think it is slightly longer, but I think it's slightly darker than the other one. So yeah, I think this one, for me, is a lot better than The Curse of Peladon, but Planet of the Daleks and The Green Death, two of my favourite Jon Pertwee stories in his era, to be honest. I love them back to back because Planet of the Daleks merges in so well with The Green Death. Jo wants to go home, and I can understand her reasoning. Right, next up we are moving on into the Tom Baker era. I've got The Armageddon Factor and Nightmare of Eden. Now, the Armageddon Factor is a very underrated story in the Key to Time season. Now, it depends on what mood you're in for the Key to Time. If you're not a big, massive fan of the Key to Time, then I'm not sure you will like the Armageddon Factor. It's quite of a slog, but I really like the story, and I think whatever mood you're in, finishing off the Key to Time season, then the Armageddon Factor would be a fantastic way to end the Key to Time. But like I said, if they're going to introduce a series link in the classic series of the Key to Time, but then at the end of the episode, the Doctor divides and spreads out all of the Key to Time pieces all back over the universe again. So it's like, he's got the whole key, but he divides it all around the universe again. So I was thinking, what's the point of all that? So yeah, a bit confusing. But Nightmare of Eden's quite underrated. I really like that one. Very psychedelic. It's a very, very, very clumsy acting in that one. Next up, we've got the creature from the pit. Yes, the only one on this VHS tape. Yeah, Creature from the Pit, I don't think it's well loved at all. Obviously, you all well know that there is a certain Doctor Who monster in that looks like, well, it's kind of explicit for me to say, otherwise, you know, I might get blocked or demonetized, and I don't want to say anything like that. Right then, next up, we've got another Doctor Who story from the Tom Baker era. We've got The Seeds of Doom, The Hand of Fear, and Horror of Fang Rock. Yeah, I'd rather be sure to show you what are the stories on these VHS tapes, because I could completely make them up. So yeah, The Seeds of Doom, The Hands of Fear, and Horror of Fang Rock. I've got Seeds of Doom and Horror of Fang Rock on DVD. Hand of Fear I don't. I think it's a good story to end Sarah Jane's reign as a companion. But yeah, certainly. Again, you can see the variety of different VHS tape slipcovers. I mean, you've got different versions. You've got one that's very, very colourful, and then you've got these ones which are just the classic greyish black and white versions. So I just think I'm incredibly lucky just to have these slipcovers, because, you know, they're just so retro and so nostalgic. Right, moving on. This one here, I'm not sure, I could be wrong. Oh yeah, this one is the E-Space trilogy, the whole E-Space trilogy. Full Circle, State of Decay, and Warrior's Gate. State of Decay and Warrior's Gate I don't have on DVD, and I wouldn't waste my time watching those, because I just managed to get through the State of Decay just about. But Warrior's Gate though, oh, it was just like, I couldn't complete part 1. I'm sorry, but part 1 I just couldn't complete. But Full Circle is the best story on there, to be honest. So yeah, I think this is going to be my least favourite VHS tape, because I'm not a big fan of the E-Space trilogy. But it's certainly a good, you know, VHS tape to have done nonetheless. This one here, I'm not sure which one this is. Ah yes, this is one of my favourite ones. So we do have in this one the Sontaran Experiments, The Brain of Morbius, and one of the best reasons why I don't have Genesis of the Daleks on DVD is because I've got Genesis of the Daleks on this VHS tape. For me, watching Genesis of the Daleks on a repeat on UK Gold finds me a lot more intriguing to the actual story itself. I just think with the time of watching Genesis of the Daleks on retro TV and recording one of the best Doctor Who stories ever, I just think it's a win for me. I mean, there's the difference of watching Genesis of the Daleks on DVD and watching Genesis of the Daleks on a VHS tape. There's sort of a lot of difference. You've got the grainy sort of static effect on the TV, and I just think it's so much like, it's not as clean as it is on a DVD. I just think you get a real good feeling of what the quality was like back then. And certainly this is like, you know, old 90s retro quality compared to a DVD sort of modern era sort of quality. Like, it's a lot more cleaner, you get to see a lot more that it's quite high definition, whereas this one's not as high definition, but you get to see the quality difference, which is something really good to see. And we've got two more Colin Baker stories. This one here is The Face of Evil, The Invisible Enemy, and The Sunmakers. Now, I don't have The Face of Evil or The Sunmakers on DVD, but I do have The Invisible Enemy though. Face of Evil, great introduction to Leela, and The Sunmaker is one of my favourite Tom Baker stories. I think it's quite underrated, very underrated. And I think The Face of Evil and The Sunmakers have two of my favourite Jelly Baby scenes of all time. Especially with The Face of Evil of, would you like a Jelly Baby? It's true though. To say the evil one eats babies, like, no, you shouldn't believe what they're telling you. And next thing you know, the Doctor holds off a swarm of, you know, people in the woods and like, drop your weapons. Well, I'll kill you with this deadly Jelly Baby. Kill him then. What? Kill him then. You don't take orders from me. and he eats a jelly baby. Takes me to your leader. I love that scene, and especially in the Sunmakers when he just says over to the taxpayer or the whiny accountant, "Do you care for a jelly baby?" Like, he just points with a lot of greeniness in his face. I love it so much. Yeah, Tom Baker's brilliant, especially with the jelly baby scenes. Last Tom Baker story we've got The Horns of Nymon, a Doctor Who documentary. I believe that's more than 30 years in the TARDIS, I think, but I'm not too sure. I might have a look at that again. The Leisure Hive and Meglos. Now for me, I don't kind of rate this VHS tape a lot, because let's be honest, The Horns of Nymon is hated by a lot of people. I think it's clumsy, I think it's laughable. The Leisure Hive, don't bother. Just don't bother, guys. Don't bother wasting your time. Don't waste an hour and a half watching The Leisure Hive, because you'll get nowhere. You'll get no satisfaction from any of it. And then Meglos is kind of an okay story, to be honest. Right then, moving on into the Colin Baker. Oh, actually, no, we've got to start off with the Peter Davison era first. What am I doing? Right, Peter Davison era. We have Warriors of the Deep and the Twin Dilemma. And on this one, which I really want to show you right now, is I've got the Caves of Androzani, and there is a little number right next to it. And that number there is 1984. And that is a little bit of a notice for me, because whenever I look at this VHS tape, whenever I see that there's the number right next to it, it means that I have got the Cages of Androzani on here that was on original broadcast. Yes. Cages of Androzani on original broadcast on BBC One in the 1980s. Insane. Insane. I'm so amazed of how they had the chance, the time to combine all the parts of the Cages of Androzani back in 1984 when Peter Davison's era was coming to an end, and they managed to capture the Cages of Androzani on original broadcast. That is mental. Like, I'm going to show you again, that is mental. And it's not the only one that I have on original broadcast. There is another one on here which I do have on original broadcast. Now, I'm pretty much making an entire mess on my bed, really, covered with a load of VHS tapes. But let's move on to more Peter Davison stories. We have Fall to Doomsday and Kinder. Not one of my favourite VHS tapes, I've got to be honest. Fall to Doomsday, I couldn't complete it. I got through part 3 and then I dropped off to sleep. That's the honest truth. That's how I really think about Fall to Doomsday. And Fall to Doomsday was the first ever Doctor Who story Peter Davison actually filmed. And Kinder, I think it's quite psychedelic. It's alright. It's quite funny in places, but I can get by it though. I think it's okay. Next one here we have, I think this is Resurrection, I think. Ah yes it is. It's got The Awakening, Frontios, Resurrection of the Daleks and Planet of Fire. So definitely one that goes in pretty much episode order. So The Awakening, Frontios, Resurrection, and then Planet of Fire, all going in chronological order. But that's very, very good though. I think this is a really good one. I quite like Frontios though. Planet of Fire and The Awakening are quite good stories, but I think Frontios is very, very underrated. And then we have one of the VHS tapes that I've already told you about, that I already have on original broadcast. Yes, I do have Earthshock from 1981 on original broadcast. Yes, you want to get a closer look at that? Yeah, that is incredible. It also has Enlightenment, The King's Demons and The Five Doctors. Don't bother watching Enlightenment, it's crap. I hate the Black Guardian trilogy, that's why I don't have Mordred Undead or Terminus, and I don't plan on getting the DVDs or a VHS tape or any books on the Black Guardian trilogy. I'm not a big fan of the Black Guardian trilogy. I don't like Mordred Undead, although it's a good return for the Brigadier, I guess. Terminus, don't buy. Just forget about that story. And then Enlightenment, I think it's the worst out of all 3 of them. So please don't bother with the Black Guardian trilogy. It's not for me my favourite, or doesn't stand out to me as one of Peter Davison's finest work as the 5th Doctor, to be honest. But The King's Demons and The Five Doctors are 2 of my favourite underrated stories, to be honest, in the 5th Doctor. They never get talked about a lot, but they are really good stories. And certainly Earthshock, getting it on original broadcast. Again, I'm not trying to make you all jealous, but I was like very, very lucky to have parents that were very into Doctor Who back in the 1970s and the 80s, when they were watching Doctor Who as young kids, and they had family members with recording equipment. They managed to record Earthshock for some apparent reason on original broadcast. and I just felt so lucky to be a part of that sort of experience. It's very different on BBC One. There's a lot more like funny ad breaks throughout all of these VHS tapes, because you get to see UK Gold advertisements compared to now advertisements. You get to see the quality of it. It's all so different, and especially with BBC One being so different back then and compared to now, I mean, you could see years gone by where the graphics look so much better in nowadays, whereas back then they kind of looked, you know, quite similar, but just showcases what a lot of time just goes by, and you know how things looked quite different, the graphics look different. Doctor Who has grown and expanded throughout the entirety of the modern era. You just see the clear difference of watching something that's been on original broadcast and then watching it on DVD. You get such a different comparison. So yeah, this is definitely one of my prized possessions, the original Earthshock broadcast, certainly. So I do have Cases and Zani on original broadcast and Earthshock on original broadcast. So two of possibly, I would say, the best Peter Davison stories of all time on original broadcast on VHS. But my favourite all-time Peter Davison story is Resurrection of the Daleks. I've just got a very close connection, and I think it's the fact that I watched that DVD a lot more than I do with Earthshock and the Cases and Zani for some apparent reason. Now moving on to the Colin Baker era. Two Colin Baker stories I've got with Attack of the Cybermen and Vengeance on Varos on this VHS tape. Taking a look there. That looks pretty awesome to me. Yeah, Attack of the Cybermen is very, very dark, and watching it on the old VHS tape, I think it adds something to the overall story. I think the story is better with a very gritty, sort of static, sort of old-fashioned retro graphic of television, if you know what I mean. I think it's a lot different compared to a cleaner version on DVD, and especially the atmosphere, especially going into the sewers and the underground, sort of like, you know, the undergrounds of referencing of the invasion, Telos, Mondas, and the Cybermen tombs as well. So you get to see a lot of references in Attack of the Cybermen, and especially the Cybermen are really dark in that story. But yeah, certainly it's a very underrated Cyberman story. And of course, Vengeance on Varos is one of many people's favourites really in the Colin Baker era. But yeah, I think Vengeance on Varos is a load of people's favourites, but I personally prefer Attack of the Cybermen, just because I think it adds so much more to the overall story, the atmosphere, and the, you know, the whole dark complacency with the whole VHS sort of like setting, the vibe it gets. It ups ante with the atmosphere, if you know what I mean. And then this is another Colin Baker VHS tape, and it's in red writing, which means it's very, very different than the season 22. This is season 23, Trial of a Time Lord. It doesn't have anything on it, but what I do remember that the red colouring reminds me of the Trial of a Time Lord series. So this one does have Mind Warp. It's missing the Mysterious Planet, but it does have Mind Warp, Terror of the Third Voids, and The Ultimate Foe. Now, I would be proud to say that I do have the Trial of the Time Lord series on VHS, original separate DVDs, and Blu-ray box sets. So that's the only thing I could be really proud of in collecting both VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. So I think season 23 is the only one I've managed to complete, both on VHS, DVD, and of course Blu-ray as well with the season 23 box sets. And finally, we've got two more Sylvester McCoy stories. We have this one, which I believe is The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, Ghostlight and the Curse of Fenric. Greatest Show in the Galaxy, one of my guilty pleasures throughout the Seventh Doctor's era, and especially Ghostlight being very, very confusing. I kind of like that one in some places, but I think for me it's definitely confusing. And of course, Curse of Fenric being one of the all-time greats of the Seventh Doctor's era. So yeah, that is a certainly great Doctor Who VHS tape for me to have. Yeah, these were certainly done throughout the 1990s, because I couldn't remember if I got this on original broadcast. I think there was just only two that I got on original broadcast, and those were Earthshock and the Cases and Zani. And then my last final one is another Sylvester McCoy story, and this is the last ever Doctor Who story in the classic series, and that is Survival. Yeah, Survival is the only one on this VHS tape. Now, if I show you closer, there is a little bit of writing. I'm not sure if you can see that, but there is a little bit of writing. I'll try and calculate it out. But it says Paradise Towers, but it's been scribbled out, and there's sort of like Gen 1 and 2. So there's something about on this special VHS that it has the words Gen 1 and 2. I'm not sure what that means. And Paradise Towers, they've all been scribbled out, but Survival's now been rewritten over that scribbled out sort of like paste. Yeah, some sort of paste that blurs out on what's happened, and then you get to rewrite over it. That's pretty much what they've done on the majority of these VHS tapes. But yeah, that's the end of my VHS collection, and that is pretty much empty right now. So as I've shown you, pretty much I've got a lot of these rare Doctor Who VHS tapes that I don't think I'm going to be selling for a very, very long time. And especially if you can get hold with a VHS tape player that still works today. My VHS tape player, I believe, was given to me in 2008. I had a couple of old videos, like they were non-Doctor Who related, but I kept the VHS tape player because I knew it would come in handy one day. So that VHS tape player is very, very old. I think it's 25 years old. Still works today. I think I've had problems in the past where my VHS tape player hasn't worked for my VHS Doctor Who stories, was because I think the TV didn't work for me, because I think sometimes you can have problems with the actual VHS tape player and sometimes with the TV. Sometimes the TV itself doesn't like a certain VHS tape player or doesn't like a certain tape, and therefore it ejects it out or gives a very blurry and very glitchy sort of quality. But yeah, a lot of these VHS tapes, they do suffer with glitchy and static quality, which is kind of a shame, but there's not much more you can do now, because there's the difference of DVDs and Blu-ray where everything is so clean, whereas these you get to see a little bit of glitchiness, a little bit static, and the quality is not as clean as the other sort of formats like Blu-ray, HD definition, and then DVD as well. So I think that concludes my entire Doctor Who VHS collection, and the fact that it's super rare and the fact that all of these VHS tapes are so original today, it just warms my heart. No matter what collection you may have, whether it may be a massive collection or it may be sort of like a very small collection, or if your collection is very rare or not as rare as they should be, no matter what collection you have of Doctor Who or any show, you should be really happy with your collection, because no matter what collection size, it's not a popularity contest. I don't see this as a popularity contest to say I've got one of the best collections ever. No, I don't think it comes down to any of that. No matter how big or how rare your collection may be, all you have is a massive heart, and that massive heart just shares a load of love throughout everything in your collection, whether it be magazines, books, DVDs, VHSs, models, figures, whatever it may be. As long as you're happy with your DVD or your whole Doctor Who collection, and the fact that you're really proud of it, with a massive Doctor Who heart, that makes the entire difference. No matter what collection, all collections are the same, big, small, rare or not. Every collection is the same in my book. So no matter what collection of DVDs, books, magazines, like I said, you have, we will always have the biggest heart, because the heart of a passion for something, of collecting something like VHSs, means the whole world to not only myself but to all of you as well, because I would die for all of you to have a copy of just one of these stories to give out away. I know it seems quite hard for me to do that because I'm really clinging on to these VHS tapes for the whole of my life, but they'll be coming to a point where VHS players won't be working anymore and they won't be on for sale, whereas they'll be coming to a point where VHS tape players are going to be so old and so classic and so retro that it's going to be my job to keep my VHS tape player working in order for me to carry on watching these wonderful VHS tapes. So they are possibly the most rarest thing that I've got in my entire Doctor Who collection, and I'm very, very happy to showcase all of these VHS tapes with all of you today. But thank you so much everyone for watching for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash the like button for me. Please subscribe for more Doctor Who content like this. Thank you so much everyone for watching and for understanding my backstory, my personal backstory of these wonderful VHS tapes that my mum and dad and their families made throughout the 1980s and the 1990s. All credit has to go to them, because without them I would have got none of it. None of these original broadcasts of Earthshock, all the Kens on Azani. Yeah, I think I would suffer a lot without these crucial Doctor Who VHS tapes. It just shows the passion and the love that my mum and dad and their families had back in the 1980s and 90s, passing down these wonderful VHS tapes to generation to generation to generation. And so thank you very much everyone for watching my VHS collection of my Doctor Who stories, and I'll see all of you next time for a brand new Doctor Who video. Until then, protect the NHS, stay at home and save lives. Thank you so much everyone for watching for my whole rare Doctor Who VHS collection, and I'll see all of you soon in a brand new video. Until then, take care of yourselves and I'll see you soon. Goodbye!